You're looking at Unrendered on IKTV. I'm Tony Regisford, and I'm chatting with Sir James Mitchell. Sir James, in the last couple of weeks, days really, there's been a developing issue with the Bokama project and some BBC journalists being here accosting, if you want, the Prime Minister and throwing allegations, so it is said. Clearly, when you have big projects, like you oversaw Canawan, and I think, again, there was speculation on what and how you were personally benefiting from that project. How difficult it is as a leader to manage and balance the idea that you do need big projects and you need foreign direct investment, and at the same time, not be painted with that brush of being involved in any sort of corruption. Because, you know, you can do due diligence as much as you like, you still take a chance.
Indeed. Tony, I have promoted, and my party has always promoted, and right-thinking Vincentians promote the idea of direct foreign investment. We need the money. We don't have it here.
Yes.
Banana's not producing it. We get a little bit from the vegetables, etc., and so on. Tourism is the way to go, you know? And all projects like that, I appreciate. As everybody knows, Prime Minister Gonsalves and the entire Parliament supported my family proposals for the development of Ilocos, and I thank them.
Yes.
Prime Minister Gonsalves went so far as to try and get investors from Qatar to be involved in my project. Of course, he's trying to flog his airport, but yes, you know, I don't get involved in that. I am silent when he's talking to the Qataris about that, but I was pushing my thing. Now, let me take Vincentians back. The land in Bokament was bought by me in the NDP government from Jack Ponnet as an agricultural project for the Rastas. Jack Ponnet came into my office after we settled the Orange Hill matter, and he said he had some lands. I went on, of course, and I tackled the Cassons, and I negotiated, with the help of Inky Williams, the purchase of Monkwin and Peters Hope.
Yes.
So I had a vested interest in that area. What has gone on with Bokament? I don't know. And I'm not prepared to jump into that. But I will say this. A Vincentian living in England came to see me once about the Bokament project, who had some land there. And he told me he went to see the headquarters of the Bokament people in England about his land for which he wasn't paid. And they told him, that's a matter you have to sort out with the government.
Yes.
And that if he sold, he was able to sell a villa, you know. If he sold 5 villas, they will give him 1.
Okay.
So he said he wasn't in that. That is what a Vincentian who owned land there tell me. I hear of all the people who have not been paid, and I sincerely hope that they will be paid. And on a sideline, it a little bit amuses me, because what the Prime Minister is facing from the BBC journalists. You remember I had my share with CNN?
I was going to mention that with the Jolly Joseph.
The Jolly Joseph murder.
Yes.
Which I got the final thing, which I disclosed here, because a Catholic priest, when I went on CNN, you know, I knew that the woman had committed the murder.
Sorry, yes.
Yes, but I was not prepared as Prime Minister to prejudice the position of the courts with the private information I had. But I was glad, finally, that a priest came to my office and to say he was the person that heard her confession in the fort. You know?
Yes.
So, but as to the other things and so on, all I would say is in terms of what Mr. Eustace has been doing, if the BBC were interviewing Dr. Gonsalves, I was not going to get my mouth in that until BBC had published what they had to say. You have to be very careful with these things when things are going on where you don't have all the facts.
Yes. But isn't that basically what Mr. Eustace is doing anyway? I mean, he's...
No, you see, you can't allow, as a leader, you can't allow events to dictate your policy. You have to be out front with your policy and know where you stand.
Let's look at building and loan. There's a bit of a mess, basically. The place is on the verge of will it work, will it not work? We see, you know, the FSA stepping in and there are other factions that are popping up for the saving of building and loan. Is there some sort of barometer as to what's happening in the country in terms of financial institutions? Is this the chickens coming home to roost?
Well, I think it has a new name that I would like to give them. Building and grown.
Just a building and grown society in your words.
Building and grown. Now, when these things happen, I go back to basics. Where is the central bank in all that? Where was the central bank with the destruction of the middle class by Clico and British American in St. Vincent and throughout the Caribbean? When I began to attack that during the referendum, Dwight Venner says he has nothing to do with insurance companies. I suppose he will say now he has nothing to do with building societies. Dwight Venner has been there too long. He is the longest serving central bank governor in the world. We need fresh thinking and fresh vigilance of these financial
And you mentioned that in your booklet.
That's right.
Yes.
You know, I put him there. I was one of the persons that put him there. But you must always, same way we have to look for succession in politics, we have to look for succession in our institutions. And it is very, very sad what has happened there with building and loan.
Do you think it can be saved?
I don't have the facts. I don't have the facts. And I wish it well.
Do you think the FSA stepping in now is the right approach, or is semblance of the right approach?
Not only they should step in, the central bank should step in. And legislation should be changed to give the central bank authority to deal with all these institutions. What are they doing? Just checking with what money goes between RBTT and First Caribbean and so on, and see the balancing of the accounts and so on. The central bank knows all about the movements of monies, you know, are supposed to know. That is what they have offices for in all of these parts. And it is really sad. A lot of these disasters following in our monetary system, just like what is happening in the monetary system in different other parts of the world.
Sir James, with all these current issues, you hear the BBC journalists I'm just slipping back here to Bukama. BBC journalists accosting the Prime Minister on an aircraft. How would you have dealt with that as a Prime Minister? How would you have dealt with an allegation thrown at your face, a journalist coming to say to you, Sir James, where's all this Otley Hall money? And I'm just saying, I'm not saying you have Otley Hall money, I'm just saying, as that allegation is out there, how would you feel about that? How would you deal with something like that?
First of all, your conscience guides you when people come to you with things. And when you know in your conscience where you stand, you can withstand anything. I have withstood the slings and arrows of Otley Hall for 12 years, and nobody has come up with evidence to see that I got any money from it. You know? You mentioned a while ago, and I'm glad you bring this up. Let me touch you on that again, since could I have got something out of Canavan? I got something out of Canavan, and you know what it was? The advice from an architect in building my home in Beckway. The architect, who was 90-something years old, was supposed to be the prime designer in the Canavan project. And from very early, there was conflict in Canavan between the Italian influence and the Mexican influence. The Mexican influence in Canavan is still there in the thatched house for the bar at the Tamarind Beach Hotel. And the Italian architect was not really used much, but they didn't want him, and I was happy to get him to advise me and to design my house.
And you're saying that essentially that's what you got out of Canavan?
That is what I got from the architect. I made contact with him through Canavan, and when he came and he saw my site and I told him what I wanted, I said I like the religious cloisters in Europe, and I want a garden in the center of my house, and I want the feeling of a religious cloister. And having been a hotelier and a prime minister, I'm very concerned that the house should be designed with good security. I didn't care how my house looked like on the outside. I want to be happy with my house on the inside. And he became a friend, and he gave me his design personally, nothing to do with Canavan.
Sir James, as this program starts to close out, we are also heading fast into 2015, where an election is due. I know this is just 2013, but by the time you blink, 2015 would be here. Indeed, the election can be called before then. How do you see your party's chances in an election if it's called now or even in 2015? And should the Argyle International Airport become some form of a reality in terms of the airstrip is paved, the terminal building is finished, and it looks like a completed project, or near so, how do you see your party's chances?
Well, I'm going to throw out a challenge to Prime Minister Gonsalves. I bet him that there will always be more boats in Otley Hall than planes at his airport. Let time tell us how things evolve. I wish you well. I'm not going to say anything derogatory about that. But my party needs to reevaluate itself. It needs to understand that, in all honesty, where they are, when the people keep rejecting you and have rejected you 3 times at the polls, be careful. It sends a clear signal to you. And party has to understand, first of all, and fundamentally, there's a difference between leadership of a party and leadership of the opposition. Leadership of the opposition is a constitutional position decided on by the majority of the members. Look at what has just happened in Barbados. Oinata led the party, his party, the Barbados led a party, and he lost. The party immediately got together, and he did not turn up for the voting, and the majority of the people, of the parliamentarians, selected Mia Motley, whom he dethroned, to be leader of the opposition. He is still leader of the party. We need to understand that difference And we need to really go forward. Because if, in my view, when you lose an election, look at Joe Clark in Canada. He lost an election and became foreign minister under Mulroney.
Yes.
Look at the foreign minister, William Hague, in England. He is there still as a minister.
I'm just going to cut through the chase. Are you saying all of this to say that your current leader of the party should step aside?
He should. And by not stepping aside, he's also sending a signal that he doesn't think any of his members in Parliament are ready to take over leadership.
So James, thank you very much for coming on Unrendered.
Thank you.
I want to have you here again. Thank you very much. You've been looking at another edition of Unrendered. My guest was Sir James Mitchell, and we discussed his recent publication, St. Vincent and Grenadines, The Ungovernable. Jomo Thomas is up next with Plain Talk.